folks. Another of Woody's basic tips. This is number 8, I believe, and this is dealing with the HalfStep WholeStep Diminished scale. I spoke about it in one of my previous videos, and I think gave you a story of the history of me trying to find a reference point for that, or how that scale sounded. It is unlike most scales, which are 7-note scales for the most part, except for pentatonic scales, of course. This is an 8-note scale, and it can be in the format of half-step WholeStep or WholeStep half-step. Depends on how you're using it and how it's functioning. In some ways on diminished, fully diminished 7th chords, you may want to use the WholeStep half-step rather than half-step WholeStep. What it amounts to is, again, the intervals. Let's say if we're in the key of G, you're going to move from a low G up a half step. And of course, fingering wise, I tend to, there are a couple of, it's always good to have a couple of different fingerings as options. I tend to stick with a 4-note cell of notes per string, and you can do it first finger, second finger, 4th, slide up to 4th, or you can do first, slide up half step, and then 3rd finger and 4th. And when you cross strings, if you're in place and don't move your hand, which is a good idea for your left hand position anyway, you're already in line for this next note, which will be a whole step going when you're crossing the string. In this case, the C sharp. And so I can do 1 1 3 4 or 1 2 4 4, and then I'm in line for the G, which is a whole step from that F. Now, so really what we're going to talk about today is just the how to utilize this scale and how effective it is on dominant 7th chords or 5/7 chords or any kind of 7th chord that has a dominant function to it. You can do it with a straight, for instance, a straight G7. And also altered dominant 7ths. For instance, like a G7 flat 9 or a G7 flat 9 with a sharp 11, or a G7 sharp 9 with maybe a sharp 11. And now if you get into the augmented stuff, then you're going to probably want to switch scales to maybe something like a super Locrian mode. But generally, it has a great sound for those altered, slightly altered 5/7 chords, or even straight 5/7 chords. So it's good to have a reference point of how this scale sounds. So you want to play it enough and get it under your fingers enough to where it's pretty much in your musical DNA or muscle memory at least. And the more you play it, you'll kind of get used to the exotic sound that it has. The scale itself, as I said, was an 8-note scale. It repeats itself every minor third, up or down, and it's basically made up. It is known as a diminished scale, so it's made up of 2 diminished arpeggios. So in the case of, if we're in the key of G again, if you play a fully diminished arpeggio, G, B flat, C sharp, or D flat, E, or F double flat, G, you've got that as your G. Now all you do is move up a half a step and do the same thing on A flat. And of course, when you put those two together, you have and that's the half step, whole step diminished scale. There are a number of licks that can come from that scale that you can start to incorporate, in soloistic things, or use in some kind of fashion. One example that I've found through the years, and it again moves in that minor third interval capacity as you go through the lick itself. If you take like the flat 7, the F, and we're still in the key of G, you take that F and you're playing a whole step, and then you're going to go to your third above that and do a whole step there. It's kind of a tritone relationship there, that whole tone, like a whole tone scale, but we're not going to actually play that. We're taking the scale notes of the G half step, whole step diminished scale. So we do F, G, B, C sharp, and then we come back to a third above where you started, which would be A flat. So it's F, G, B, C sharp, A flat, B flat, D, E. And continue either up or down. But it's kind of an interesting sound. That's the diminished scale. Another way you can utilize the scale is to use our previous study on on augmented arpeggios as sort of a device to use over altered 5/7 chords as well. And that, if you remember, sounded something like this. And that's moving in whole steps again, which you end up making a major third when you move like that. And so you could use the whole tone scale for an augmented chord to play over it, generally. And another thing that you can do is use that same augmented arpeggio, but instead of moving it in a whole step formation, you can move it in the half step, whole step diminished scale. So rather than doing a whole tone scale and moving that augmented arpeggio, you're going to move the augmented arpeggio on the half step, whole step diminished scale. And that would sound like this. There are a number of things you can do with it, including, of course, incorporating a little bit of tapping or hammer-ons and pull-offs, utilizing that scale. But you can utilize it that way too for a little flashiness. But it's a really cool sounding device again for altered or straight 5/7 chords. So good luck, have fun with it. See you next time. So hey, before I leave, in case any of you happen to notice I am using a different strap on my bass today. Our good friend Libby Dempsey has been hard at work making a lot of face masks for during the coronavirus thing, and she's got a lot of custom work she does on stuff. And she's been making these custom hand-woven guitar straps. They're made with 100% mercerized cotton for durability and color fastness. They're fully adjustable, and they're in you can get them in your choice of colorways that are available. It's available through her Etsy shop, and it is called Maggie Made Treasures. Or you can message her on Messenger or Facebook. Contact her under the name Elizabeth Dunn Dempsey. And they're $70, and that's free shipping is included, and they're really nice. So I'm checking it out, and you should get you one.